Welcome back. This is Family Time 190. We're going a little bit out of order in terms of our social emotional learning competencies. Usually we cycle through them in order. This week we're going to focus in on responsible decision making. But the thing I want to look at ties in real closely with stuff we've been talking about the last couple weeks. Particularly last week we were talking about biases. Why those inherent kind of feelings about something exist and how our biases impact our behaviors. This week we're taking that a step farther. It's a very similar concept. We're talking about opposing views. What I want you to do this week, the exercise we're going to do, is I want you to take an issue, look at the two opposing views, try to decide why those views exist. And you don't need to make an argument one way or the other. I just want you to try to consider why both views exist. You can take a social issue, or it can be something from your own life. Maybe it's just you have a viewpoint about something and maybe your parents have a different view about that thing. And I just want you to consider why those viewpoints exist. That is a tremendous exercise in empathy. If we can practice understanding someone else's perspective, but not just what they're saying, but why they're saying that, why they feel that way. That's what will allow us to really learn and make connections to other people. And if we really want to try to make a healthy argument, we need to tap into people's emotions and the needs they're trying to meet. And that's what it really comes down to for me. If you look at opposing views, all human beings are trying to meet the same needs. Some of us are trying to meet certain needs at a different level than others, but we all have the same human needs. One that we talk about a lot in class, or one kind of school of thought around human needs, is Maslow's hierarchy of human needs. We talked about this in my classes last week, but I want to build off of that. The idea is there's this pyramid that exists. If you go into psychology, sociology, education, you learn about Maslow's hierarchy of human needs. And he essentially postulates that all human needs exist on this pyramid. And you have to meet the base, the foundational needs first before you can go up the pyramid, where you can build on top of it. And all human beings have these needs. The first set of human needs would be physiological needs. And these would be the things that keep you alive, right? Food, water, shelter, that sort of thing. Then you move up the ladder. If you have those needs met to keep you alive, then it's safety and security. And that would be physical safety, but then also mental, emotional, spiritual safety. If you meet those needs, then you can move up to a sense of love and belonging, where you can create connections with other people. If you meet that, then you can move up to a sense of self-esteem, where if we feel like we belong, we feel like we have some meaningful connections, then we can start to develop a sense of self, and we can feel like we have value and that we're capable of achieving things. If we can get to that point, then the point of the pyramid is self-actualization. And I don't know that any of us are ever fully self-actualized, but if we meet the other needs, we can get to a point where we're in a continuous, lifelong pursuit of self-actualization. I think that really should be the ultimate goal, is to not reach a point. I see it too many times with people when we hit a certain age, whatever it is, I'm 30 years old or I'm whatever, and it's like, I'm done learning and growing, I'm done exploring new things. And I don't think that should ever be the case. I think we should be on a constant journey of self-actualization, but that's when you're at that stage where you're defining your beliefs and your passions and all those sorts of things. And that's an important thing to consider in education. If we're talking about serving students, if we have students, and we know this all too well, teachers, we know this too well, if we have students whose physiological needs aren't being met, if when they're out of our building, they're home insecure, they're food insecure, those sorts of things, it's very, very difficult to get them to climb the ladder. If you're hungry, and I mean really hungry, not just, hey, you haven't had a snack for a while, I mean like, food insecure, we're never going to get you to care about algebra or physics or whatever. So we have to meet those base needs. And then it's unfortunate, it's a challenge in education because we don't always have a lot of control over what's happening outside of our building. But then in our building, we have to make sure that we're meeting like safety and security needs first. Students have to make sure, or we have to ensure that students feel safe, that they feel secure, that they feel not just physically safe, but emotionally, that they feel like they have an environment where they can develop and be themselves. Then that leads to a sense of belonging, all those sorts of things. So we'll talk again more about this in class, and I'm kind of reiterating some things we talked about in class last week. But now I want you to take an opposing viewpoint, the one that I talk about in class, but for everybody else, I use gun control as an example. Now already if I bring that up, then people will start to have pretty strong feelings about that thing. However you want to feel about it, as always. You don't need to feel how I feel about things. But I think it's important to understand, and it's tragic that a lot of the images we see, if you talk about politics, political debates, things we see on social media, it's just people shouting two different opinions at each other and not taking the time to make a connection with why an opposing view exists. And often you'll find the opposing view exists to meet the same need you're trying to meet. So we talk about gun control. We talk about on the far one side, one view would be, kind of talking extremes, but one extreme view would be we're locking down, there will be no guns, no gun ownership. Okay, and the extreme view, the other would be like everybody gets a gun. It's the Wild West. You're going to have shootouts at high noon. Most people exist somewhere in the middle, right? Some people lean a little more one way, or where they want a lot tighter gun laws and things like that. Some people lean a little more the other way, where it's like, well, no, we need to have responsible people who are armed. That's the best way to stop it. Now, if we take a second and just consider not what your opinion is, or not what you're trying to convince someone else of, but why do those two different sides exist? If you're thinking in terms of human needs, okay? Well, I think a lot of it probably has to do with safety and security, that human need. If the people who want tighter gun restrictions, it is to keep people safe. They think that's the best way to keep people safe and try to stop school shootings and things like that. People on the other side who want to get guns into the hands of other people who would be responsible, hopefully, that is to keep people safe. Because that viewpoint is, the two viewpoints. The one is if you restrict guns, like, okay, if we don't have guns available, then we can't have things like school shootings. The other side is, there's always going to be guns available, so we need to protect ourselves with guns, and that'll help stop school shootings. Or whatever. I'm using school shootings as an example. That's kind of the big one when it comes to gun control discussions. However you feel, wherever you fall on that spectrum, those opposing views both exist out of a desire to keep people safe and secure. And that is a worthy endeavor. And if you can make that leap and understand that somebody who has a diametrically opposed view to you is still trying to meet the same human need, and trying to meet human needs is a worthy endeavor, because we're all human beings and we're all trying to meet these things and we all have challenges. If we can make that leap, then we can start to build empathy. Then we can have actual discussions and meaningful arguments, not just fights. And that is how we really start to communicate in an effective way and build relationships. And that is what we need. So consider that this week. I know some of this is a little repeat for some of you who had me in class. We kind of started trending this way, talking about biases last week, but to kind of present to everyone. And then in my classes, we'll talk a little bit more. We'll talk about some other human needs, like Tony Robbins has another set of human needs that tie in very closely to Maslow's, but he talks about the need that drives you more, that pulls you more than some of the others, kind of determines a lot of stuff about maybe what you should do as a career or the things you're passionate about in your life and those sorts of things. But think about that and consider an opposing view. Something different than I use as an example, but think about why those views exist. All right, until next time, much love.